All right. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. This is the live stream, the stock market open, stock market closed. My name is Ryan. Let's get into it. You guys have come here for some type of information regarding the stock market, the global economics, the gears that are turning. And before I get into this episode called Russia Turns Off Gas, Europe About to Implode, Mass Protests, let me remind you once more what this show is, why I'm doing it. In my full-time job of investment management for the last 12 years, I have felt like there are a lot of very important news stories that maybe there's just not enough time or interest to cover, but that are very, 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 very important to the global happenings. We are in a very, very interconnected world. So we're actually going to do 2 live streams today. We will see. I have a feeling the second live stream will be the one that is going to hit the stock market open. So we'll get the stock market opening bell this morning on the second live stream. So with that said, let me hit a couple of buttons there, send those emails out. Okay, great. So you see the meme here. It's a classic Americana painting. This is actually Europe, really, not Americana, excuse me. Classic European painting. The arrival of the electric bills, oil on canvas. All right, you guys, have you been paying attention? Have you been paying attention to what's happening in Europe right now? No joke, electricity bills are going through the stinking roof. I'm going to read an article here to you called Lehman's Moment, Europe's Lehman Moment. But before I get there, I want to show you, build up for you, what is actually happening. So it was really cool when we were upset with Russia to say, you know what we're going to do? We're not going to buy any Russian energy. Well, the problem for Europe is that Europe over the last 15 to 20 years has made themselves 100% completely dependent on Russian oil and gas. Now, occasionally during the summer, solar and wind helps, but it's not nearly enough. It's just not enough, and everybody knows it. There's some nuclear, however, they've shut them all down, and they're only talking about turning them back on. There's coal, but of course coal is dirty and ugly. Don't even say that word. So Europe is in a really, really weird spot because with them sanctioning Russia and saying, well, we're not just going to buy anything. Russia has been toying with them like a cat in a toy, saying, oh, our gas line turned off and we need to repair it. Oh, so there's been an unexpected interruption. Well, Russia finally last week said, well, we're just going to leave it off. We're just going to leave all of our gas. So right now, Europe is having to fend for themselves. Let me see here, just make sure the stream is going fine. Don't forget, y'all. Okay, good. Everything looks great. Don't forget, you can comment in this comment down below, and I'll chat with you. All right. Okay. So let's talk about what is exactly Europe's Lehman Moment. What do they mean by that? What they mean, look at this chart right here. This is the cost for energy in Europe. Just in the last not even 12 months, it's gone from maybe 90 units up to nearly 350 units. Now, I won't get into what all of these various numbers mean, but just know it's increased over 300% here in just a few months. And I'll go to some exact examples because, again, what I'm finding that I don't see anyone report on the news. In fact, I'll just show it to you right now. Just so that you can understand exactly. Here we go. Okay. Here is a woman in England, I believe, and she took the darn photo sideways. Thanks a lot, lady. But the tweet she says, I got this electricity bill today. How in the name of God is this possible? We're a small coffee shop in Westmeath. And her total bill is 9,800 euros just for the month. $10,000. Imagine if you got that $10,000 bill. There's another one here. Yeah, here's another one out of Europe, out of England, another one out of England. This tweet says, my mom owns a small cafe in Leicester. Her electricity bill has jumped from $10,000 a year to $55,000 a year. That's $12,000 a year to $64,000 a year. She's working out her options, but more than likely she'll be forced to close. This all goes back to the Russian energy thing. People, and I think a lot of Europeans, didn't realize just how dependent they were on Russian gas. Now, let me read this to you because you guys keep this in mind. This is very important. Europe is not just some continent off on its own with pretty old cities that we like to go on vacation to go see. Europe and the United States and Asia and South America and every single continent that has any economic activity, every country, every city, it's all interconnected at this point. I was reading about 3 or so weeks ago. It's roughly 20% of the companies in the S&P 500. So the American stock market, about 20% of the companies are European based. So all of the stuff we're going over in this episode right now, if Europe does crash or fall apart or whatever, just know this is going to directly impact the United States. There's no way this is like an isolated event that we don't need to worry about. So let me read this tweet to you. It's not too long, so you can understand exactly, get some context. So 1.5 trillion margin call and bailout needed. Here's what happened. Okay, so on August 29th, about a week ago, it looked like for a moment demand destruction was doing its job. Sure, people couldn't afford basic utilities anymore after gas prices soared 700% this year, but at least that also meant that prices could finally take a breather as families tightened their belt. Rationing of gas and lowering consumption, a break in prices. Let me zoom in a little bit for you guys so you can see this. There you go. Okay, rationing of gas and lower consumption equals a break in prices. You would think, right? Usually supply and demand. When there's not enough supply and there's a lot of demand, high prices. But when the economy falls apart and there's less demand, prices should come down. However, he's going to explain here. And that's what started to happen. Gas futures fell around 30%, bringing prices back to where they were 10 days ago. But it was unclear how far prices would continue to drop, and so energy companies rushed to hedge their product and speculators placed their bets. By shorting gas futures, now keep in mind, in the energy industry, the agriculture industry, the industry of commodities, I mean, easy example, you have a corn farmer, they will hedge their farm, their yield, in case there's a bad storm or a drought or something that wipes out the corn. That way at the end of the growing season, if they have a terrible year, they hedged. All right, they bought investment contracts in case it went bad, that they could still be okay. Same on the downside. Same on if things get worse. Well, what he's talking about here is that a lot of energy companies in Europe this year have been hedging their bets in case things get even worse, and the bet is going the wrong direction on them, is what he's about to describe here, which means not only is energy extremely expensive, like I'm about to show you a few tweets, but that they actually now owe even more because their hedge bet is going the wrong direction. So he says, by shorting gas futures, they could still sell gas at the relatively higher price while fading demand would push spot prices lower. Only that's not what happened. Over the weekend, Russia permanently shut down one of Europe's key sources for energy, the Nord Stream 1 pipeline. This was too much for the market to handle. Even with reduced demand, gas futures shot back up 35%. Unfortunately, catching the industry flat-foot as the market moved against them. What followed was a bloodbath. According to Norway's Equinor ASA, which is one of the biggest oil and gas companies in Norway, European energy trading is being strained by margin calls of at least 1.5 trillion, meaning their bets, their hedges went the wrong way so fast and so hard that they could owe at least 1.5 trillion. Unless government extends the liquidity, aka bailout, as traders, energy trading will break down. So not only is inflation going absolutely wild, but now capital is being sucked up to guarantee trades in wild price swings. In echoes of the 2008 financial crisis, when housing bets gone bad threatened the global economy, it's now energy companies holding European taxpayers over a barrel. The energy market will blow up unless you pay us. And so, the money printer is revving up. Sacrifice the euro and just print what's needed to live another day. As European governments are discussing energy price caps and more bailouts, for example, energy giant Uniper just got a $15 billion bailout in July, the euro fell below 99 cents on the dollar. Remember all of my friends at the 401ks when I was giving your 401k update this past spring, and I had told you a great hedge would be commodities and all of that kind of stuff, but also be very concerned if you hear the term price caps, then you know things are getting really bad. Hey, we've been talking about it for a couple weeks now on this show, and they're doing it again in Europe. Then, adding fuel to the fire, OPEC just voted today in favor of reducing oil output during the worst energy crisis of the last few decades. Now, if you're scratching your head and wondering why money, our key tool for trade, should be sacrificed in times of panic, you make a great point. Europeans may want to consider a hard money that can't be debased at a whim and is actually backed by energy instead of undermining it. Yeah, so, okay, this is a very dark and sinister prediction and all of that, but it's just another layer on this whole, onion. Peel back this onion of layers and layers of mismanagement and terrible governance and terrible decision making over decades and generations, truly. Now let me go and expand more on this energy problem in Europe right now. Just put yourself in the position of people in Europe, okay? We already saw they talked energy costs rising 10%, 300%, 500%, 700%. That's electricity, it's gas, it's everything that makes the world go round. All of your energy. This came out last week. Alcoa, the world's biggest aluminum producer, has shut down 1/3 or 31 tons of its aluminum production capacity at their smelter in Norway amid high energy costs. Well, just this week they announced 2 more EU smelters going offline due to excessive energy costs. Let me read this to you. On one hand, losing the ability to manufacture aluminum is bad news for any economic activity that requires a lot of aluminum. However, let me zoom in so you guys can read this with me if you're watching. However, on the other hand, this politically guided new world we are going towards doesn't need aluminum because you can't heat it. Predictably, 2023 is going to be the beginning of several Build Back Better decades where the ownership of material things disappears. When your wages are focused on sustaining yourself with housing, food, and energy, all of the other purchases become just indulgences. Sustainable life in equity with the needs of the planet means returning to the era where you received an orange or a piece of chocolate as a Christmas gift, and you are thankful. Cars, appliances, phones, or other type of luxury durable goods are indulgences which become out of reach for the working class. Thus, removing smelters, ironworks, factories, and other heavy industrial machines, it only makes sense. As meager wage earners are focused on purchases to sustain life, there is little room for indulgences. As the World Economic Forum has stated, we will own nothing and we will be happy. Happiness experiences will be provided and the virtual metaverse will fill our needs. So the article from Reuters says 2 more European aluminum smelters are powering down as the region's energy crisis shows no signs of abating. Slovenia's Talum will reduce output to just a fifth of capacity, and Alcoa will curtail one of its Lista plants in Norway. Close to 1 million tons of European primary aluminum capacity is now offline, and more may follow as a notoriously power-hungry sector struggles to cope with soaring energy costs. You guys, let me continue. And that's not the first one. This has been going on for about a month now. You'll see articles and tweets pop up about various utility companies shutting down because they can't afford the bills, other various manufacturing plants that are shutting down because they can't afford the bills. And these aren't just manufacturing plants that are making pencils. They're not making notebooks. These are the factories that are making the very base materials that you need to make your life work, like plastics and aluminum and the electricity grid, these types of things. Okay, so because of all this drama, there have been mass protests across Europe. Again, you guys tell me in the comment section right now, please, have you seen this reported in the mainstream cable news, the mainstream newspapers, the mainstream anything? I don't even care. I don't care how slanted the mainstream is, left or right. Have you seen any of this? Okay, mass protests in Prague, Czech Republic against NATO and EU policies. All right, if you haven't been to Prague, this is one of Prague's most, main street, a very popular. Look at this video of it. Yeah, the people are not happy. All right, so that's Prague. All right, that's Prague. Here's Indonesia, which granted is not Europe. Same thing. Keep in mind as you watch these protesters. That's a third world country. Indonesia is a second, third world country. You're going to see this happening. Second world countries. Protests break out in London this evening over energy prices. And this isn't even a good video, honestly. This is not even the greatest video. This is like, 50 or 100 people. There are a couple other large ones. Not just in London also, but in Italy. In London and Italy, there are people having mass energy bill burning protests. I might have the video of the Italy one. Let me see. Here's again. Did you guys see this? Sweden will lend up to 250 billion kroner to electricity companies to save them from technical bankruptcy. Finance minister announces. Here's in Japan. Governments are buying fuel when the companies can't afford to do so. Japan's government will step in to procure liquid natural gas this winter if companies can no longer afford to do so. Same thing. They're having the same problems over there. I showed you this a minute ago. The tweet from the Women's Cafe in England. $12,000 a year for electricity, up to $64,000 a year. Now again, just compound that. That's not one cafe. Use your imagination here to extrapolate out across all of these developed and second and third world nations what this does to a global economy. We already did this one. Again, here in Austria, Vine Energy, Austria's largest energy supplier, is insolvent, requiring 1.7 billion euros to remain liquid, according to local media. So, with all of this said, you guys, this is obviously not good, right? Duh. This is obviously not good. You do not want this type of thing to be happening. The reason I bring this article up is, this topic up, is it's not over and it's not done. It's going to get worse. And, the question I'll ask you when it comes to this stuff is the same question I asked a month and a half ago when everyone was debating on what is a recession, right? What is a recession? Well, why are we debating what is a recession? If things are so good right now, why is this even in the conversation? So same thing here. If things are so good in Europe, if this is just a little blip, then where are the global leaders, the European leaders, the French leaders, the Italian leaders? Where are they fixing this stuff and working to correct all of this? I don't see anyone. In fact, Macron, president, or is he president? Is it the president of France or the prime minister of France? I think he's the president of France. He had actually said about 2 weeks ago that the quote era of abundance is over. So it's on you. It's on you now, he says. So this is going to be an interesting one. So the big, the $1 million question here: what's the play? How do you make money off of this? How do you profit? Well, just here's some things to keep in mind. As I said earlier, the U.S. stock market, S&P 500, is roughly 20% made up of European companies. If European companies are starting to struggle and somewhat contract and potentially implode, you would expect that their performance, their earnings, their dividends, their quarterly earnings calls are all going to get worse and worse, meaning they could, by themselves, just alone, drag down the overall stock market, especially in the coming 3 to 6 months when winter comes and everybody's really needing electricity to stay warm. Another thing to consider: if energy prices are exploding to the upside so much, you would expect some type of windfall profits to come across the various oil and gas companies. So that could be something for you to consider and look at. You need to do your own research. Don't trust me. I'm an idiot. I'm a retard. Don't believe me. Don't listen to anything I say. This is just commentary. You know that. Look at the scrolling disclosures at the bottom of this video. Um, I'm just here to give you ideas. This is not investment advice. I think those are two plays to consider, though. The cost of food, again, natural gas makes up a lot of the fertilizer that goes across the world to make all of your food grow. So if the fertilizer continues to get significantly more expensive, the farmers and so on, they're not just going to eat those costs, they're going to pass them on. So perhaps that another commodity play right there, food. That is where I think you're going to see a lot of opportunity in the coming months. It's tough, it's tough to say because, on that oil and gas one, let's just say, for example, you buy Exxon Mobil thinking, well, energy prices are going to go up and Exxon does energy, so that will work. Okay, that seems to make sense, but then what if there is a proper depression because the European economy implodes on itself? Then the number of offices that are open drops, the number of people going out to spend money drops, the number of semi-trucks driving products around drops. Therefore, the demand for oil and gas drops, and you would expect to see that Exxon or whoever, you name it, energy company, start to drop as well in their earnings and their profits and so on, which would negatively affect their stock price. So it's a lot of weird stuff, and that comes back to this whole thing here, where those companies will buy hedges. However, the hedges are kind of going in reverse on them right now. So anyway, you guys, that's all I've got for you right now in this episode. Keep in touch. Like I said, comment below, all that stuff. And I've got another one coming up right now. I'm starting to split these apart. I'm going to split them apart by topics now, instead of just doing one long live stream. So stay tuned, refresh your page. I'm about to go on a live stream here in about 2 minutes. This one's going to be a fun one. I'm going to show you data specifically on America right now to show you just how not great things are in America. More and more Americans are using loans to buy groceries. That's how not good we are.